Hi, I'm Lara Shipley. I'm an American photographer, and I'm talking today about my book, Desire Lines. This project takes place in the Sonoran Desert region, which borders the US and Mexico. I started traveling to this area about 10 years ago, but the majority of the photographs in the book take place in the early Trump administration time period around 2016, 2017. Returning to the desert at this time, I was really stunned by cultural changes that I noticed, particularly in regards to the presence of Border Patrol and the way that they were relating to the local communities. Just noticing this kind of rise of surveillance towers everywhere, seeing things for the first time like Border Patrol helicopters swarming neighborhoods, things like that. This led me to talk to people living there about the changes that they've observed in their lifetimes of the border, and this desire to think about this place from a longer perspective of time. I think that as humans, our historic memory is really pretty short. We tend to think of time of things happening in a place around the time period of our life, maybe our parents' life. And a problem with this is that we can tend to take a current situation for granted. Like, oh, this is just the way it is, the way it's always been. So I was curious to look at this place from the perspective of many decades, many hundreds of years, going back to the time period where Anglo-Europeans first started entering into this region. And what I found, considering this time period, was a place that has just been in constant state of evolution, constant state of migration and flux, people coming in, this really sometimes terrible history of violence, but also people marrying people from other cultures, other parts of the world, starting new families, and how this history continues to be seen in the region today. It's a culture that doesn't exist anymore, that was once part of this place, but then also a new culture that's very Sonoran. The other reason why I was really interested in this time period of looking at particularly the first Anglo-Europeans coming into this region, first from places in Europe like Italy and Spain, and then also with the rise of the United States, white frontiersmen coming from the East, was that this is the group of people that are in dominant control today. And so I was interested in looking at their philosophies as outsiders coming in, and how they have shaped the border. And I think it's really interesting if you look at the tenets of these early expeditions of manifest destiny. You see this idea of divine privilege that these groups had in relation to other people who were actually, in fact, indigenous to the region. And I think that is really important when you look at what is happening with the border today, and also this long history of dysfunctional border policy, right? We really have never in our country had, I think, a humane migration policy, because I don't really feel like that was the goal. I think the goal was always to get control over this region and maintain it, and therefore also maintaining the entire country, right? Having that control over the entire country. I make a lot of landscape photographs, and I think this area can be really tricky for people to understand and to see, because it looks like this really pristine, untouched desert wilderness. But when you're looking at it from a historically geographic perspective, you see that there is a long human history here. But the people that are native to this place, and even some of the early Mexican and Anglo settlers, a lot of them were pushed off as this more and more of this region became under federal control. And so what you have is this really, rather than a border line, this border region that is heavily maintained, surveilled, and then, but also, kind of just looks like there's nothing ever there, which I think is really intentional. Part of a lot of the work I do is thinking about things that are happening in rural spaces, because I think we use geography, we use isolated geography as an ability, as a way to hide things. And this region is really no exception. I don't think people in this country are really encouraged to see it. So in the book, you have photographs of the Sonoran landscape, photographs that speak to kind of, I think, the disorienting experience of trying to visualize this place, alongside images about this colonial history, images about the current crisis of people crossing through and dying in the Sonoran Desert, and images of military escalation, all together in order to really think about bringing visibility into this place, and acknowledging this colonial history that is still very much with us today.